Okay, good morning. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to New York State Open Meetings Law, Public Officers Law, Sections 100 et sec. And for purposes of this meeting, I shall designate Jeffrey Tremblay as our recording secretary. Today we have before us for consideration proposed amendments to two things. Board Rule Section 1-13 is continued from the September 21, 2018 open meeting, and Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York as continued from the August 22 and September 21, 2018 open meetings. We also have before us consideration of the proposed amendments to Board Rule 1-13. Let's begin with 1-13. Are there any comments from the board or staff on the draft of proposed amendments to Board Rule 1-13? And I might ask Chad just to say a few words to set the stage, if there's anything, just to give us the context again.
Sure. So this is a proposed revision to Board Rules 113 in order to provide a mechanism by which public servants who, as part of their city duties, are performing work on behalf of not-for-profits, they can be designated by their agency head, and such designation will be disclosed to the board and available publicly to do that work. And then if the public servant will be involved with that not-for-profit city business, if any, they must come to the board for approval for that involvement. And after the discussion at the last board meeting, we've clarified section 3 of the proposed rule in order to sort of more clearly lay out the discrete steps of the rule. That there was concern that it was confusing in that it didn't clearly separate out how it's sort of a sequential process. It doesn't all happen at once. And this proposed revision sort of made clear that once a public servant receives approval from their agency head, they must come before the board to be involved in the business dealings of the not-for-profit.
So as I recall, last time we had a fairly extensive discussion about this. We had both a number of specific suggestions and then the comment that you just addressed. My reading of this is that everything we talked about last time has been met. I have one extremely minor thing, which is it's in the commentary on Exhibit 4, page 6. As we were moving from demonstrable to demonstrated, I caught one remaining demonstrable on line 1 in the commentary. A statement of basis and purpose, I guess that's what it's officially called, a statement of basis and purpose. Otherwise, it is my impression that this very well caught the gist of last time's discussion, but Jeff, go ahead.
One question. There are several standards in there by which the agency head will judge whether it is appropriate for the public employee to be working for the nonprofit, furthering the agency's...
Jeff, can you be a little louder?
Sorry. I mean, they're all here. You know, there's a nexus between the proposed activity and the public servant's job. It's the mission, it serves the mission of the public service agency, furthers the agency's mission, is not undertaken primarily for the benefit of the not-for-profit. Agency head finds that it's okay. If it involves business dealings with the city, then it comes here for the board to approve. But the board's approval is based on those same 4 factors. Should there be something more? I mean, to do business dealings with the city, should we also find that it's necessary, or that this public servant's involvement in those business dealings with the city will be of benefit to the city? That something more that we find other than simply echoing the same 4 categories that the agency head employs.
I can imagine that presenting some problems in large agencies where there's significant involvement with not-for-profits, where often very low-level people will be required to perform work on behalf of a not-for-profit in a role that could conceivably bring them into contact with the city on behalf of that not-for-profit, where they're performing effectively clerical work or providing bodies at a fundraiser. But if that's a change that we might have want,
What's the distinction, Jeff, that you're thinking between, because the participation that furthers the agency's mission doesn't seem to me distinct from furthering the interests of the city. And by definition, that employee could only further the agency's mission. That is the city's mission. They're of unity there. right?
Yeah, so you're on, right, where Carolyn is Exhibit 4, page 7, line 18, which that's the standard.
Right.
That was, my understanding was the same, but to further the agency's mission is to benefit the city. So
Right.
I actually think they're synonymous.
I think if I'm understanding your point, it's that we're basically now second guessing the agency head, is that the?
Well, we're second guessing, we're also using the same standard. So.
Right, so literally
so why
second guessing
come
under
here?
application of the same, but that's what we do anyway.
Shouldn't we be saying, well, this employee's business dealings with the city in particular furthers the interests of the city?
Right, well, that's what the board is determining. The board determines that there's, the proposed participation is what the board is assessing. And I would say in the waiver context, where just a straight up moonlighting waiver, it's the same standard. The agency head has to say it doesn't conflict with the purpose
And we
and
have
interests.
to agree.
And the board has to agree. So it's always a parallel structure. And so by definition, the board is always arguably second guessing.
I know, that's not the phrase, but
Right,
it's,
right.
this is what we do,
We're
we
looking at-
apply the
I think
standard.
reviewing is
Right.
is the term that I prefer.
We
but,
apply the standard, but that's
Right,
how I
right.
understood the question, is that
Yeah.
you're asking if we would just apply the same
It
standard,
is the same standard.
we would
Yeah.
do that.
So if
Yeah.
you're comfortable with that, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean-
Unless
Yeah.
you want to, sometimes we use the standard, this employee's participation is necessary. That this employee do this rather than somebody else. We're not doing that here.
I think, Jeff, I saw it as an additional layer of accountability. Because with the first level, we're trying to streamline this, right? So if you meet these criteria, then you can designate the individual, and all you need to do is just report it to the board. But if the individual is dealing with someone who has business for the city, you have to actually get board approval. That's what I see, yeah, so that's why I'm comfortable with it. I don't think we need an additional element, because I thought the purpose was to add another layer of accountability.
If that's what we're doing.
That was my
Yeah.
understanding. If we want to go another route, which is raise the bar, but.
There's also an extra finding by the agency head. In other words, the agency head, I mean, there's sort of, it's two more things. And so the first time around, the agency says this is useful to have this person in this job, and they tell us that. The second time around is the agency head has to go back again and say, not only is it useful to have the person in the job, but there's this demonstrated, that it's appropriate for the person to be engaging these business dealings. And we apply that same, we review that, and it's the same standard, but it's again it's an independent layer review, which is to say us. So I think I think this covers it, and I don't need I think it's, in some ways, it's addressed more by process than by a different standard, but I think it gets us to the same place.
I had more of a mundane comment. If we look at subsection C, 1C, the written designation is disclosed to the Conflicts of Interest Board within 30 days, and will be posted on the board's website. Within 30 days of the internal designation,
Yes.
so there are two designations, but that's the first step. The written designation that they make, then they have to provide it to the board within 30 days after they've made it.
Yes.
Is that clear?
Would it be better if we move the within 30 days to the front of the line? And within 30 days, the written designation is listed. Do you think that's clearer? I don't think it's all that unclear, but I don't think there's a
either.
problem in moving it to the front of the line. I don't know.
And then it would read, within 30 days, the written designation is disclosed to the Conflicts of Interest
Does that
Board.
change
and
it? You
posted
think
on the
that-
board's
For me,
Does that
website.
that's
help?
clear, but when I read it, I'm trying to read it objectively as a public servant, and then I was like,
It does get the deadline up front.
Yes.
I'm not sure I see it all that different, but I don't have any problem with the change, and it
Is your
does.
issue about the writing part, or the
Well-
30-day part?
If you're looking at it without the benefit of discussing it for the
Right.
last several weeks as we have,
Right.
it's coming at it cold. Within 30 days of, it might be clear to make the deadline up front and say, within 30 days, you need to provide the resignation.
Provide a written designation.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. It does certainly get the deadline up front, and if the thrust of C is that it be done promptly, I guess it emphasizes that. So I'm okay with that. more. Anything, any further questions, comments, discussion of this item? If not, then I call for a motion that the board approve the recommended amendments to Board Rule 1-13 as the final rule with the following modification, the one we just did, moving up within 30 days. And I'm not sure if we need to approve that one last change from demonstrable to demonstrated because it's in the statement of purpose. But in case we have to, I also move that be included in what we have to approve. So I call for a motion to approve with these extremely modest modifications.
So moved.
And I believe a second, okay. All right, I have a motion, I have a second. I think it is time for us to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion for adoption of the proposed amendments with the modifications as discussed in the final rule has passed. All right, and now we move on to the next part of our open meeting, which is the discussion of the proposed amendments to the discussion of Title 53. Again, Chad, if you could give us a bit of the background, and I know we've seen this one more than once, but just to reset the stage.
Sure. At its last meeting, this board provided approval for staff to submit this proposed changes to the rules to the law department for review, and as part of that review to the mayor's office of operations also reviews it. Both the law department and the mayor's office of operations have provided their certifications to this law, and because there were some, what I would say are technical changes to the law and some cleanup in the statement of basis of purpose and the tracking of the revised changes, it has to come back before the board for approval, and we're seeking the board's approval to begin the comment period for this rule, which will incorporate another open meeting where board staff will be available for comment from the public and public servants, and then any changes to the rule after that comment period will come back to the board before publication.
Now, my quick and then slow reading of this is there is nothing here to talk about. Is that a fair characterization of the changes that the law department made, or maybe a fair colloquial characterization of the changes the law department made?
The law department made those substantive changes to the law or the commentary. It was really just streamlining how the different sections of the proposed changes of the rule looked on the paper to be much more user-friendly.
Okay. Any comments from the board or staff on the draft of proposed amendments to Title 53? There being none, I call for a motion that the board adopt the recommended amendments to Title 53 of the Rules of the City of New York as a final rule. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, I see. The motion for adoption of the proposed amendments as presented as the final rule has passed. There being no further business for consideration pursuant to the Open Meetings Law, this meeting is hereby adjourned.